Hi, this is Carol Woodbury, and thank you for joining me. Today I'd like to take you on a quick tour of Policy Minder. The SkyView Policy Minder product is there to allow you to simplify and automate your security administration and your compliance requirements for IBM I. The way the Policy Minder works is that you can define what your policy settings are. So let me take a look at the categories that you can define. You can see by looking across these categories that it goes very broad across IBM I. So you can define what your policies are supposed to be for each one of these categories, and then Policy Minder will allow you to check that on a regular basis, daily, weekly, perhaps monthly, and find out where the differences are between what you've said it was supposed to be, in other words, your policy, and what the settings actually are. So let's see how it works. I've taken advantage of the feature that we have called Initialized Policies. And what that's done is to bring in the current settings for all of my values, specifically for all of my system values. And so I can take a look and see that I have my audit settings already defined. They have already been brought in by the product. Now what I'm going to do is run a compliance check. So basically what that's going to do is take what I've defined in this policy and compare it to the current system value settings. Now you see that the value of the compliance column is next level, which means that something is not matching. So if I drill down further, I can see that in my password category, I also have a compliance status of not next level. So if I drill down even further, I can see that I have a non-compliant item for my password maximum length. So if I display this, you can see that the policy, or what it's supposed to be, shown in the middle here, is not the same as the value, which is a value of 9. So the current value is actually 9. So to prove that, we can just pop up a command line and do a display sysval of the Q maximum length. And you can see it's set to a value of 9. Now at this point, what do you do? Well, I could go and make the change to the actual system value. But remember I said this is all about automation. So what you can do is run a compliance check and then take advantage of our function that's called Fix-It. Now Fix-It is going to change anything that doesn't match your policy and make the necessary changes on the system so that your system configuration matches your policy. So what I can do is take option 15, Fix It, and now my system value is going to match my policy. So again, if I just pop up that command line, and now the password maximum length has been set to 10, so Fix It ran. So I can automate this by running either the check command on a nightly basis and then follow that up with a Fix-It command. And let's just go ahead and fix everything in that system value category because there were a number of things that were out of compliance. Now at the beginning, if you want to find out what would change but not actually make the change, you can run in test mode. And that will give you a list of the things that would actually change and the command string that will be run. But I'm actually going to run this for real. And if I wanted to, I could send this via email. Now, Policy Minder is all command-based. So most people, once they get the product configured, schedule these commands to run, as I said, on a regular basis, either daily or weekly, sometimes monthly, but usually daily or weekly. So you can see that we have 2 items fixed, nothing was not fixed. So if I take a look at the message log, you can see that we have a bunch of messages to indicate the status. This is kind of a flight recorder of what goes on the system. And so we can see the details of what was actually fixed. So you can see the actual command string that was run as well as the previous values. So in this case, the QMAX signed system value was being fixed. I'm going to go back into work with policies, and again, the policies are the way that you define what you want the system to look like. And then a compliance check is the comparison of what you want it to look like or your policy to the actual settings. One of the things that makes this helpful, again, from a compliance point of view, is that you can add a policy description. And this will print out when you print the policy definition. This is a place where you can document your risk acceptance statements to best practices. Or perhaps you can say exactly what part of your corporate security policy you are adhering to. Whatever kind of documentation you would normally have associated with your policy, this is a great place to put the exceptions and the reasons for the implementation and your method for implementation. So you have all of your documentation in one place. Now I'm going to move on to the user profile category. The user profile category is very widely used, and it's used for a number of different things. From a security administration point of view, one of the things that a lot of people will use is the ability to automatically set users that are inactive to either a status of disabled, or perhaps you want to take even more action. Maybe you want to remove its password or remove the group profile settings. Whatever action you want to take, it can be taken. So I have created this thing called a template, and a template is just a definition of how Policy Minder is going to look at the user profiles. So I'm going to take a 2 to change this, and you can see that I have these I's and O's. What are the I's and O's? That's an include and omit. So I am including all of the profiles that are inactive 90 days. So I can include profiles based on a number of different criteria. These are all shown here. So the criteria I've chosen here is the inactive days. And I've chosen 90, but you can choose any number you want. That's totally up to you and totally configurable. Now I've also omitted some profiles because there are always going to be some profiles in the system that look inactive, but that you would never want to take any kind of action against. And rather than mentally omit them from your list as you are reviewing the list and the report, it's better to actually omit them from the template, and that is then a quick way to see the list of profiles that are inactive. So what am I going to do? I'm scrolling down, and I can pick and choose what I want to do and analyze for the profiles that are inactive 90 days. So what I'm going to do is look at the status, and in this template, I'm saying that any profile that is 90 days inactive or more must be at a status of disabled or going to be, as we call it, out of compliance when a compliance check runs. So I'm just paging through the rest of this template. Now what I'm going to do now is take a look at the compliance setting. And as I take a look at that, I've already run a compliance check. And when I take a 12 to work with this, it's going to list out all of the profiles that were examined. So if I take a look, now again, this is trying to save you time. So I'm going to just subset this so that I can look at just the non-compliant items. So if I take a look at the details, again, what the profile was supposed to be is going to be in the middle, and the value that was discovered is always on the right. Now I'm thinking I'm looking at the wrong profile. No, it's my inactive profile. All right. So what I was saying here is that it's not just setting the status to disabled, but in this case I also said the special authorities were supposed to be none. And these profiles have some additional authorities, and that's why it's out of compliance. Let's take a look at a couple others. Let's see. Oh, data seed. That doesn't look so good. Okay, it is still sitting, well, it's at status of disabled, but it has a password. It's supposed to be password none, and it has a password. So you can see that I have defined several criteria. It's supposed to be status of disabled. It's supposed to have no special authorities, and the password needs to be none. So with that criteria, I can now run a fix-it against it. So if I run a fix-it, and again, this is all command-driven, so I can say user profile, and I can say enact 90. And I can say test mode, yes. Okay, so this is telling me what would change but not actually making the change. And I know that because when I look in the message log, the command string is preceded with these right-pointing arrows. So that means that it's in test mode. Okay, fix-it is running in test mode. So again, from an automation point of view, once you get comfortable that you have omitted all of the profiles that you would never want to take action on, what you can do is schedule the check command and then schedule a direct fix-it command. Fix-it will only fix the things that the compliance check identified as being different from your policy, and it will set those profiles to be the same as your policy. Now, how else are policies helping you with user profiles? You may have a very specific requirement to have a certain set of users look and be configured in a specific way. So if we take a look at this front desk requirement here, I'm looking at the compliance check. Ooh, and all of those are okay. So let's take a look at a different one. And we'll look at the policies instead. All right. So what I've done with the command audit, I have said, now this is security best practices, any profiles that are limited capability no or limited capability partial should really have command auditing turned on. So again, from a security best practices, you can always run this, and then you can run fix-it. Any new profile that gets created with limited capabilities no, meaning that they can enter commands from a command line, really should have command auditing turned on. The fix-it will ensure that that is how those profiles were created. Now, one additional thing that you can do, again, from an administrative point of view and from a compliance point of view, is to identify new profiles with certain characteristics. In this case, we're looking for new profiles that have been created with the special authority of all object. So I am including based on the special authority, and the special authority that I'm looking for is all object. So I'm using only this parameter called new profile allowed, and I'm leaving that at the value of no. Now when I do that the very first time I run a compliance check, it's actually getting me a baseline of what has the profiles that have already been created that have all object. So let's just go ahead and create a new user profile. And I guess we better make sure that it has all object, huh? All right, so then I can run a compliance check. And we'll just say user profile, all object, because that's the name of the template. And do I want to send it by email? Sure. I want to know what that looks like. Okay, so it is identifying, and oh, non-compliant items were found. So I'm guessing I have new profiles, and obviously we know that, right? So if I take a look at this all-object template, and again, let's just subset this down to just the non-compliant items. We have a new profile with all-object. It's out of compliance because it's new. Now, what might this be, and how do you use this? Well, sometimes you have auditors that require you to list out all of the users with a special authority. You can just get all of the list of profiles from this template. Maybe you need to identify and approve of any profile that has all object that didn't previously have it. This is another way to identify those. If the user is a new member of your team, all you have to do is say accept new, and this puts it into the baseline. But perhaps this is a new all-object profile. Maybe it's a programmer that has gotten all-object for a temporary period of time. You can leave it out of compliance until the project they're working on is completed, and then you can turn it to or accept it into the baseline or remove the all-object from their profile. So it's just a reminder, again, your lives are too busy, you wear too many hats to have to remember everything. All right, let's take a look now, and instead of using the green screen, we are going to use the Gui interface. So we have a browser interface, and the same things that we have done in the green screen you can also do from the browser. So these are the user profile templates that we were just working with. But now I want to show you how you can set proper securities on objects and manage those authorities and ownership using Policy Minder. So again, we have templates. And in this case, we have templates that will be looking at libraries and objects in libraries. So I'm going to define which libraries I'm going to include in this template. I have the policies, meaning what am I going to check. And I'm not checking anything at the library level, but what I want to do is check things in the libraries themselves. So when I do that, I can do that for all objects, or perhaps I want to be more granular. So I could do something like check the very specific programs. And I'll just say I want to include all program types. I'll add that. And then when I look at the policy, I can say, well, let's see, the owner is supposed to be, we're looking at the SkyView product, so it's supposed to be owned by SkyView Own. And the user profile parameter, meaning does it adopt or not, is supposed to be no. There's no programs that adopt or that use adopted authority, and use adopted authority no. All right, and the public authority is supposed to be exclude. Okay, so we're just going to save that. So you can see it goes down very granular based on the object type. So there's unique attributes that you can set for files. There's unique attributes that you can set for object out queues and so forth. So I'm just going to save that. And then I'm going to run another compliance check. All right, so that's been submitted to batch. Now when that comes back, I can look at this and I can look at the compliance tab. And when I look at the objects in this, it looks like these are all compliant. Yes, they all match. So if I look at the other library, that's where we have some non-compliant items. Let's just look at the non-compliant items. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, so if I look at the details of this, oh, it's out of compliance because it is actually adopting authority, and our policy said that it was not supposed to adopt. So we actually, within the SkyView product, have one program that does adopt authority, and that's actually to enable this interface that we're looking at right now, the Gui interface. So this is okay, but for this example, it shows you a great example of what is out of compliance because this is not within my policy as I defined it. Now, the same thing that I can do with libraries, I can also do with directories. I can set a template, and I want to look at the ADP transfer directory. And for this policy, I want to make sure that it's owned by S2K object owner. There is not supposed to be an authorization list, and the public authority is supposed to be exclude, and 2 users have a private authority. So this is a really great example of how you might have an IFS directory set up that contains private or confidential information, maybe only temporary, but it does contain some highly confidential information. So you want to make sure that the directory that those stream files are going into is actually secure. So we ran a compliance check on this. We've obviously got some issues here. Let's see. The policy says it's supposed to be owned by S2K object owner. You can see it's owned by CJW, and the wrong users have a private authority. So this is where I would run fix-it and make all of those private authorities go away, grant the private authorities that are supposed to be there, fix the ownership up, and be done. Okay, now I've talked about some reports. Let's go look at those. So the easiest way, and this view allows me to see reports from multiple systems, whichever of the systems you've decided to manage through this interface. And so here is a view of the system values. Now let me make this not quite so much of an eye chart. open this up a little bit more. So again, we are trying to save you time. Your time is too precious and you have too much on your plate to make it anything else. So again, we make our reports consistent with the user interface. So the policy, the thing it's supposed to be, is 24, in this case, the block password change. But you can see that it's highlighted, and the only items that are showing you are those out of compliance items, and it's surrounded with pointy arrows so that you can see what is out of compliance. So that's an example of a compliance report. Now here's an example of the user profile. And remember, we were trying to find new users with all object. So here's an example of that. It's out of compliance because the new profile allowed was no, and it's new, so it's out of compliance. Now, if there had been no new user profiles with all object, all you would get is this one-page summary to say that the policy was checked, so you know it was checked, and everything would be compliant. So the status would be compliant instead of non-compliant. And finally, here is a view of the fix-it report. So again, it's going to show you the actual command string that was run, the previous value, and who actually made the change. Again, this is great for tracking, for change management, and so forth. Now the reports come in both a PDF and an XLS. So here's an example of an XLS where we have sent the non-compliant items for user profiles out to a spreadsheet. And here is the example of the spreadsheet for that. So as you can see, again, this is quite a whirlwind tour of Policy Minder. But again, the purpose of Policy Minder is to simplify and automate your security administration and compliance requirements. It allows you to define the settings for your system, from system values to user profile configuration, libraries and directories, files, TCP/IP settings, and so forth, and compare those to the actual settings. The result will be the items identified very clearly where they don't match, and then you can take the option to fix it and make your system match your policy. With that, I will be done for the day, and I thank you for your time. Good day.